All right. So welcome everybody and welcome to the Accessibility Committee meeting. And it's Tuesday, May 14th. And we're just we were supposed to start at 10, but we're at 10:04. And I just want to recognize that we are on the unceded territories of the Hoopichesset and the Taoiseach territories. And we'll do a round of introductions because we have a new person joining us. And so my name is Cindy Solda, and I am the chair for the Accessibility Committee, as well as a city councillor representing the city of Port Alberni. And we'll go to my left here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Darlene, Director of Corporate Services for the city of Port Alberni.
Amber Serrington, volunteer.
Good morning, everyone. Heather Zenner, Manager of Administrative Services for the Regional District.
Thank you. And we'll go online and Vida.
I am Veda Siga, Area C Director for the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District and representative on this committee.
Nicole.
I'm Nicole Utelman. I'm the Executive Director for the Port Alberni Association for Community Living and also co-chair on the committee.
Rainey.
Hi, I'm Rainey. I'm work at Canadian Mental Health. I'm a program director here.
Kara.
Yeah, thank you. It's Carol Wilkie. I'm one of the accessibility consultants working with you with Left Turn, Right Turn, LTRT, and you'll hear more from me later.
And Christopher.
I'm Chris Rutzard. I'm an accessibility specialist with LTRT as well, and looking forward to getting some information and taking some notes here for everything that we're going over today.
So welcome all. And just so you know, we are live streaming, so nobody's online that I'm aware of. So welcome everybody, and let's call the meeting to order. We already did that. Let's pass on. Approval of the agenda. Anybody want to add anything to the agenda to start with? May I have a motion to approve the agenda? Beta, and second? And second by Nicole. Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Anybody have any declarations, conflicts of interest? Anybody get $1 million that they want to talk about? And no? Okay, let's go on to the minutes. The Accessibility Committee meeting held April 9th, 2024. Any errors or omission? Motion to adopt? Anybody want to move by Nicole? Second by Veda. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, reports. And I'll pass that over to you, Heather.
Yeah, so we did send out the agenda last week with the recommendations from Left Turn, Right Turn. It was split into 4 separate documents. So 2 are for the regional district and 2 are for the city of Port Alberni. And so I'm going to turn it over to Kara and let her run through a bit of a presentation. And we're really looking for some feedback on these recommendations from the committee. So now would be the time to really provide that feedback, because once the committee has provided that feedback, our next step is to take the recommendations and the final plans to the board of directors as well as city council for adoption. So really looking for your feedback at this time. And Kara, I'll just flip it over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Heather. So our plan, I'll give you the big picture of where we're going, is because there's a lot of content there, we're not planning to go through them line by line, but rather section by section for both the city and the regional district. There's some that are distinct for both of them, and there's a lot of overlap between them as well. We can, of course, delve into any of the specific pieces or opportunities that were in that document, but I'm not planning to walk you through them one by one, but we're open to that conversation. So the pieces of it. You've heard a lot about what we've already been up to in terms of all of the activities that we talked about in the last 2 meetings. So all of those things kind of combined were brought together into this list of opportunities. I will say, because they're intended to be broad across the city and across the regional district over the next few years, they do tend to be, never the kind of thing of we're going to fix a curb in a particular place. We're going to do, those kind of very specific things, but rather thinking about sidewalks, pedestrian pieces much more broadly across the space, just as one example. And so we really want to hear from you both where there's something missing. I'd say also what you're really excited about, happy about is important both for staff, but also as this eventually goes forward to council and to the board for them to be able to hear those pieces as well. And if there's places where you want to make suggestions of either things that we should change how we're talking about them or things that are missing, we'd love to hear all of those pieces. So with that, as I have a PowerPoint. I will say, other than a summary of what's in each section, it is identical to the recommendations and opportunities that were in the package. I just wanted us to make sure that we were all kind of in the same place, talking about the same thing at the same point in time. And so that's the only reason that we've got it into a PowerPoint, y'all. So we're going to go through them, as I said, each of them section by section, and in each of them, for no particular reason, we've got ACRD first and then the city afterwards. I think most of the time the conversation from ACRD will be equally applicable to the things that are in there for the city, but there are a few places where that'd be slightly different. And so we're going to go through each of those categories, and all of them, other than increasing awareness, are things that are part of the Accessible British Columbia Act. Increasing awareness specifically came from this committee and some questions that came up, I think, after the first meeting, and then we had some conversation about it at the second meeting. Any questions or comments about the overarching plan? Okay. So we're going to talk about services first. And of course, the regional district and city have very different service offerings. So this is one of the areas where there is a lot of difference between the two. As an overarching summary of the 6 opportunities that were there under the ACRD, there's one about developing some accommodations policies that would apply outside of staff, so kind of for events, committees, other activities, developing some accessible events and activities guidance for staff, some other resources on accessibility, so around thinking about budget implications as well, ensuring accessibility of the feedback mechanism that has been put up by ACRD on their website as part of the Accessible British Columbia Act requirements, as well as, of course, a best practice. And then making sure that accessibility is part of any new planning for services, any new assessments. And so this is a bit of a vague piece in that last one, but it is because there are so many other things that ACRD is doing that we can't really dictate how to include accessibility and all those things, but making sure that you're thinking about it when doing anything else and in any other kinds of assessments. So they are all, I have them all here if we need to talk about any of them in particular, but they are exactly as they were in your package. So I'm going to pause and invite any questions, comments, suggestions around the services section for ACRD.
Anybody have any questions? No, seeing none. Oh, do you have it there?
I just wanted to highlight something, and it's just some of these recommendations or opportunities are pretty basic, and some of them we do. Like, for example, during elections, we have the ability for people to drive up and do curbside voting. But what we don't do is a good job of highlighting that to the public. In the past, we've provided the opportunity, but we haven't really communicated it. So I think there's some things that we do, and it'll be throughout this opportunities document that we're already doing, but we need to make a better conscious effort of sharing that with the community and letting them know about it. So I just wanted to share that right now. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll tell clients often that you can fix lots of barriers through good quality customer service. And so making sure that staff or volunteers are aware of that, are doing it consistently, and that people are aware of it so that they can take advantage of that. So I think I interrupted someone as I was starting to talk.
No, that's okay. That's what the city too. I remember the last few elections that we went through the same thing, but the senior homes, we stopped going inside. And so there was another, I think they can mirror each other. I think there needs to be more of that. So just wanted to put that forward. I see
Yeah,
no,
and some,
so you can go right ahead.
okay. The next section is the same thing, services, but now for the city. And so they are going to have some similarities. So about accessible events and activities, so some guidance for that for staff. Oh, sorry, there should be an S1 at the top, which is again, similarly having some accommodations policies around how those would be provided to people in the community, developing some resources on accessibility, ensuring the accessibility of the feedback mechanism, thinking about budget for the committee and for accessibility. Often those requests come up kind of through mid-year. They have not that the city has had them, but we've had many clients where they come up mid-year and there's just making sure that the budget for some requests is not the reason that you're not able to respond to something, reviewing and planning for improvements to recreational services. So this is not a specific item, like it was an item, but it's not a very specific and directive plan, but rather than needing to think about how those could be improved. And then leveraging existing plans. So just as Heather was exactly saying about ACRD, there are things included in some of the existing plans of the city. And so capitalizing or leveraging things that are already in the works to, as things that are also aligned with an accessibility plan. So they are, I'm just flipping through them, but they are the ones that are identical to your package. If there's any discussion, I'm happy to come back to them. Otherwise, we'll turn things back over for any discussion or comments.
Any comments? Anybody have any questions? I do like for one of the recommendations, more audible stuff, information, because there's a lot of people on computer, or just anywhere at meetings, and that it would be interesting to have that. I know in the theaters, we have, for headsets and stuff like that. I don't know. It would be a big cost, but interesting idea.
I just have a question. Building on what you were saying, will there be like an awareness campaign on accessibility and all of this?
I think that's one of the things that the city and the regional district need to wrap our heads around is how do we implement a lot of these things? And I think awareness is communication with our community is part of that. So yeah, but I don't know how or when, but I don't know if you want to add anything, Sarah.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, I can say that we have established a page on the city's website regarding the accessibility committee. And so I think our intent is to add to that page as the initiatives come to light. This is an ongoing committee. So I guess depending on how that kind of transforms over time and with the recommendations, I think the recommendations will ultimately come down to an action plan once approved by council. So I think that will be informed by those steps, but we have stood up a website page at this time to kind of have a central location for that to happen.
That answered your question? Anybody else online? No? And carry on.
Okay, I will add before I move on, and once I've got the floor, I will just add when these plans are published is certainly an opportunity for some broad communication about what's happening, and then certainly there'll be opportunities as specific activities are being rolled out, or as like for example, as an election is being announced, you're communicating about sites. There's certainly opportunities in those moments to be able to talk about as well what kind of accessibility measures are in place. So not just kind of the broad messaging, but also as specific opportunities arise. So the next section, I'll just skip us forward pretty quickly, is under employment. Of course, this is employment with the city or with ACRD, and so not employment in the region and in the city, but employment with the region and with the city. And so for ACRD, it's similarly about documenting and formalizing some accommodations policies for staff, an increase in training and awareness for staff, reviewing the recruitment and hiring processes for accessibility, and developing a mechanism to consult employees with disabilities. And so then just skip through them and then of course open to any comments or questions as we're going.
Anybody have any questions? I'm not sure. I think the city does a pretty good job at regarding employment. If somebody has to go off being sick or something like that, and or is disabled, we look after that. I think we do a duty to accommodate and everything like that. I know it's a little different, maybe what we're talking about, but I think we do a good job of it. I haven't heard anything across the board, Sarah. I don't know if you have or.
Yeah, I think we identified both. Oh, sorry, Sarah, you could go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Solda. Yeah, with regards to managing employees that are within the city, certainly we do have those processes in place. And I guess this speaks as well to inclusionary employment. So bringing in and talking about candidates, I'd imagine this has that aspect of it as well. So, you know, there's different aspects to that as well that I'm sure we could improve on, but we certainly do have accommodations in place for employees that are currently in the system.
And regional district, probably the same. You're probably in the same state.
Yeah, for sure. We're a smaller organization, but definitely have accommodations and sick leave policies and work from home policies. So yes.
Anybody else want to make comment? No. Let's move along.
Okay, well, the city is then we're the same. The language is slightly different, which is why we're providing them to you twice, but is the same general categories of activities around formalizing some of those accommodations policies that we're talking about, training and awareness for staff, reviewing the recruitment and hiring processes, and setting up mechanisms to gather the perspectives of employees with disabilities. I presume that we would have had any comments on these in the previous section, so shall I keep going? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So the next section was under emergency services. And again, an area where there is some difference between the city and the regional district. But there is also some overlap. So here the ACRD had 3 opportunities. So that was about reviewing the accessibility of emergency notifications, some public education on emergency planning, and reviewing and updating emergency plans. And then the cities was about dispatcher and first responder training. We'll go through those specifically. So again, as I said before, they're the same as in your package.
Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, the first recommendation there is to do with Next Gen 911, and I think there are some improvements being made to that program specifically for accessibility, the ability to text 911 rather than having to call, which I think is a big improvement. But I think we could support that change by communicating that with the public again. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention in regards to the last one, emergency plans. Last week was Emergency Preparedness Week across Canada, and I know our team here did some sharing of social media posts on how to prepare for emergencies for folks with disabilities. So if you ever see those, please share them from your organization. That would be very helpful to get the messaging out.
So the only thing I worry on the, if there's an emergency and the alarms go off, I worry about the seniors that are in their own homes and they might not hear the alarms, right? And last time we had that happen, I had people come and say, hey, we never heard it, we didn't know, you know, and that's a concern because there's some people have auditory problems and we know that the senior homes are fine because they have their own emergency backup and stuff like that. So I'm just concerned about those that are stuck in their homes or in wheelchairs and they can't get out. How do we deal with that? And that might be a different level committee meeting up for the emergency planning. So how do we deal with that? How do we help with that service? And of course, mobility, getting in and out from A to B to a safe place. So that again, I think they overlap. And so how do we deal with that? So that's my only concern on accessibility for that area. So anybody else have any questions? Or want to say anything? No? Okay. Go ahead, Kara.
Yeah, I will just say that that is exactly the intention of this first one, is about identifying opportunities to improve those. And so of course, sound will continue to be a key part of that, but in making sure that there's mechanisms in place to ensure that people can access information, know about an immediate emergency, and then access information to be able to understand how to keep themselves safe. And then we did both the public education and the emergency plans were about ensuring that they are speaking to people with various different disabilities, different needs, and are not just are speaking to themselves and not simply kind of their families and other caregivers, but speaking to them specifically about how they can help prepare for themselves. I
Okay.
think
and
I
a
saw Nicole's hand go up.
question?
Thanks. I just wondered, is anybody using the Alertable app? Has anybody heard of that?
Are you talking about from the regional district, that one?
No, it's province-wide. It's all over Canada, and it will tell you where all the emergencies are in your area.
Nicole, in the regional district in the city, we use an app called Voyant Alert.
Okay.
We did look at Alertable, but that's not the one that was selected for this region. We use Voyant Alert, so it's an app, or you can register online. It's good because you can receive text notification or a notification through the app, but
Yep.
people can also register to receive notifications via a landline, so it can come in through a phone call.
Great.
And it's important to register for this one because this is your local government providing you direct information. When
So-
you get a notification that's coming from the regional district and the city, so it is your local social source of information.
So I just think that people aren't aware of that. So, this was on everyone's mind. I was just at a provincial meeting and they were talking about the wildfire situation. And anyway, and they were talking about Alertable and other apps that, I don't think people are aware, Heather. I mean, sure, this will be in the notes, but I would like to be able to share that with the folks that we support.
Sure. Yeah, I'll share that with you after the meeting.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do you also have a social media page?
We do, yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll make sure emergency team shares it on our Facebook site, and then you could reshare that as well to get that
Thanks.
further.
Yeah. Thank
It's
you.
a really, it's been out for a number of years now, and I share it all the time, and I tell people that they should join it, and then, but the attitude of some people are, oh, well, okay, and just to even download it. It's great when you're in a meeting and everybody's phones go off. It's really interesting. So yeah, if everybody gets it, share it, join. I think it's really important. So any other questions? Go ahead.
I just had one more comment about Voyant Alert. If folks are not sure how to sign up, they can always call the office here at the regional district and we'll sign them up for them.
Go ahead, Sarah. Sorry, Kara, go ahead. I don't know why I had Sarah on my mind.
Thank you. They're close enough names, they're easy to get mixed up. Yeah, and those apps are all great solutions because they really enable somebody to have an individualized accessibility need that if they want flashing lights or they want it to vibrate or the sound, it allows you to communicate to do that exactly to what meets your needs and your desires. So then, as I said, the city opportunity that we've identified is around training. So around dispatcher and first response training, around how might somebody want to know, communicate that for example, that there's first responders on site, how would they be able to do that? So that is the last of them. Was there any other further discussion about emergency services, or should I move on?
Just a quick thing. I'm wondering if we should do more PR on that emergency alert through when we send out, I know this sounds weird, but the taxes and that, everybody gets taxes, or how do we send that information out? Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks. I guess I was meant to have this comment. I was going to say it before, but I was just going to say this is a perfect example of getting out our sources of communication and how interesting it is, because to plug the ACRD, there was a lot of outreach and communication on that program. And as Chair Solda mentioned, it's been in effect for a number of years, and the city does work in conjunction with the ACRD. So I know that there's been a number of outreach materials that we've included that on, including our not our property tax newsletters, but our City Connect newsletters, our City Connect ads that go in the AV News, and otherwise through social media. So it has probably slowed down as far as just because the program's been around for so many years. So it's just very interesting to hear that there's still a number of people who aren't aware of it, because we do actively share out the information that the ACRD puts out as well.
What's interesting too is there's a lot of new people, young people, all ages actually, in our community that might not be aware of it. So, and I don't remember seeing it, but correct me if I'm wrong. What would be great too is if there's a poster or some kind of where they just do the bar scan, because a lot of people are doing scanning of a barcode and then they will go to later. So that might be something to add to that. A lot of people are doing that. So I'm just putting it out there. Thanks.
Let me add to that. I think posters work well. Like it's old fashioned, but everyone goes to the grocery store or like community buildings and having the posters, it's like, oh, it didn't even like new information. Like for some reason, Facebook, you don't always get things, even if you're following. So even if it's out there, you might not see it.
And I would agree with you. Not everybody's on computer or on Facebook, and posters with the barcode, everything with barcodes, because that seems to be the route. So anyways, Kara, go right ahead.
Thank you. So the next section after emergency services is information and communication. And so the ACRD has 7 specific things that have been included in here. One of them is for guidance for staff on accessible communications. The next is to, as Heather was saying, continue efforts to make sure that communication is in plain and simple language, assessing the website accessibility, doing some staff training around accessible communications, developing some guidance on running accessible meetings, thinking about how information is disseminated to people with disabilities. So much of this conversation that we've just been having, and then making sure that there's mechanisms to have information available in alternative formats, like large print or Braille or other kinds of things like that. So with that, I will open it up for any further discussion.
Anybody have any questions? I always think it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So I see it's the tone, you know, I always say that to my husband and the kids and that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So definitely, I think that's important, but you know, it's really frustrating. And I think even I include myself in it, is when you make a phone call and you have to press 1, press 2, press 3. Oh, and 5 hours later, you're still on hold. Or I do like it when it says, we will call you back if you want to leave your number. And that's pretty good. Sometimes I miss that. So I believe that a lot of people get really frustrated and you just want to talk to somebody. And I don't know how to streamline that, how that can be better, because it's supposed to be more efficient. It gives staff, and I'm not sure how that would work in the new world, you know, but I just know a lot of people who get frustrated and they just want to talk to somebody, and it just takes a second to pass me to the next department. So that's my own personal, and I've heard that from others too. So any other comments? Yep, go right.
Not, I don't know how specific it is to like this work, but just in my mind, I seen the ad, it was in the newspaper about the new pool proposal. So whoever created that proposal, was accessibility part of it? Do you know?
Do you know? See, the city has 2 reps that sat on the committee, and the city's going to have a presentation pretty soon. And I noticed when I was reading it, there was some talk about the accessibility issues that people had, so I'm assuming, yes, they did. Sarah, do we know when they're gonna come and do a presentation to the city?
Thank you, Chair Solda. Yes, the consultants who assisted with conducting the assessment will be bringing the feasibility study to the committee of the whole, to council on Tuesday, May 21st at 6 p.m. So those meetings are held at City Hall and council chambers, and they'll be in attendance with ACRD staff who were involved to present the study. And sorry, one more thing. The study itself did come to the council meeting yesterday. So if you were to go on the city's website under yesterday's regular council meeting, it would be included as part of the agenda as well.
So if you want to leave us your email, we can send you a link, the easier, faster link to that. We can do that for you. So it will be streamlined. Our committee, all our meetings are streamlined live. You can watch it on there. If you have a separate issue, do you want to bring it forward now? And is there something a concern?
I just think it's a good opportunity if it's a new build and we're thinking of going forward in an accessible way. Like, why not make sure that this new build is accessible right from the start? Where you don't have to look for money down the road or try to retrofit it later. That's all. Yeah.
And that was mentioned in most of the report that I read, that people had issues with some accessibility, and I agree, they didn't feel comfortable. So it'd be worthwhile to watch that presentation. And to go on, anybody else? No? Go right ahead, Kara. If you're talking, I
Thank
don't
you.
know.
No, I had to find my mute button. Thank you. So all you missed me saying was thank you. Now for the city's version of that, it is the same list of things. The language might be slightly different. The only thing that was otherwise different is it adds the intranet, so the website pages that are specifically for staff, as an additional consideration for the city that was not part of the requirement or the suggestions for the ACRD. There will be, when we come to the built environment section, is when we'll get to some of those pieces about making sure that anytime you're thinking about building something, you're thinking about accessibility. That is one of those commitments that is in one of the later sections. So I assume that the conversation we just had is equally applicable to these city items, and so I may just continue on unless there was any further discussion.
Anybody have any other discussion regarding the last topic? No. Let's carry on.
Okay, so then transportation is the next section, which for ACRD, there are 6 items there. One is about prioritizing accessibility as a consideration whenever making transportation plans and activities. The next is to be involving people with disabilities in those planning as we're identifying priorities to be making changes. The next is about sourcing expertise. So as you're building out projects, as you're working on those, to ensure that the staff or the consultants that you're working with or the builders that you're working with have that expertise. The next is to be building the knowledge of staff around accessibility and transportation, liaising with BC Transit about expanding the accessible their paratransit service. And then the final one there is about identifying short and long-term improvements to the airport and of course, finding the funding to do that. So those are the 6 that relate to ACRD. I'm going to go through them and then identify any of the additional ones that are applicable to the city. So the cities are largely the same. There is T2 here is specific to the city that is not true for the regional district, which is about incorporating accessibility into the upcoming transportation master plan. So that is underway. It is not yet, certainly not completed. It's underway, and so making sure that accessibility is part of that. And then T7 is implementing some of the plans that the city already has underway about improving accessibility. And so again, we're leveraging the things that the city already has underway that we don't need to be repeating those pieces. So I will pause again and see if there's any discussion about transportation or these specific opportunities that have been identified.
Does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to identify anything specific? So the city is doing a bunch of master plans, and accessibility will be in a big component of that, as well as other stuff that needs to be looked at. We know we have some maintenance in our sidewalk issue. We have sidewalk issues. We have, I think there's a new rule coming out on our sidewalks and our widths and just for accessibility, but you'll need to stay tuned for that one. That's why the wide paths, we're building the key to key. They're new, they're handed down by the government. So we're going to be looking at wider paths and sidewalks. And so look forward to that. Anybody else? Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to touch on a couple of the regional district opportunities or recommendations. T5 was expanding transit service, and I think that comment specific relates to the West Coast. At the beginning of April, we just implemented a new transit system that goes from Ucluelet to Tofino and First Nation communities around there. However, it doesn't have like a handy dart system. So I think over time, we would look to implement that on the West Coast, the same as what's in the Alberni Valley. And then the other recommendation was to do with airport accessibility. And we are looking at some improvements to the Long Beach Airport terminal. So accessibility will be a part of that discussion and hopefully build over time.
Will the expanding service, is there any plans for transit to go to Sprout Lake area?
There are some discussions on that topic right now. BC Transit just had a public survey, and that was one of the discussion points. So I don't think any decisions have been made, but that's definitely being discussed.
I believe that's for all areas of the outline, Beaver Creek, Beaufort, not Beaufort, Beaver Creek and Cherry Creek. I think there's something out there now. Okay, anybody else? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I will move us forward through the transportation section. So we just did all of that. So the next section is buildings, infrastructure, and public spaces. Of course, there is some overlap between this and transportation when we're talking about roads and sidewalks. They are not kind of a black and white line, but things fit within either of those. For ACRD, there's items around assessing for accessibility and planning for accessibility, both in terms of thinking about that for future, as you're saying, for future builds, but also thinking about that in terms of planning for those kinds of changes and improvements to current facilities. Incorporating accessibility in a planning framework for ACRD, some changes to signage or thinking about accessibility and changes to signage, closing some gaps that were specifically identified because we were out on site and we did look at a number of different facilities, both of ACRD and of the city. Planning for those future improvements and mitigating the impact. And so that is about where there are some known accessibility challenges and gaps, for example, in fire halls, making some plans around or continuing, there certainly are plans right now, as Heather was talking about before, but kind of continuing to mitigate or manage the impact of those on people experiencing barriers on them. So I may just skip through these, and certainly I will show them on my screen and open for any conversation as we're going.
And if anybody has any questions, any thoughts, let me know. And I know in the city, we have bylaws, but we could do better. Everybody could do better. So accessible playground is a really big discussion right now. I see that a lot coming up to have an accessible playground, and I'm referring to anybody for wheelchair, people in wheelchairs, and just living with it so much. And you see that in other communities that they have accessible playgrounds, but how do you do that? Do you put it all together? Some people want it separate and some people want it as one. So that's a big discussion to have in our level. And we are doing a parks plan right now anyways. Anybody want to add to anything? No? Okay, let's carry on.
Yeah, so the city items, so they were very similar to the ones for ACRD, around planning for accessibility and making sure that accessibility is part of the engineering specifications when putting plans together and part of the planning framework going forward. Make sure that's part of that Parks Master Plan that I think you were just talking about. Doing public engagement and consultation when making these changes. Increasing the availability of public seating, so public benches, both on sidewalks, on roadways, on park kind of pathways. As you are updating or replacing signage, certainly like or the non-regulatory, the non-specifically defined ones, think about accessibility and how you're doing that. As we said before, closing some gaps. So when there are spaces that we've identified some challenges around, making some plans to remove those. So there's some opportunities for paving some pathways, removing some barriers in the community, planning for future improvements, of course. And then as you were just talking about, the accessible playground. So are there other comments about these opportunities for the city?
Not for me. There's lots in there, and I have no doubt that the staff is looking at that now as we move forward. It's interesting when you look around our community. We're an older community, like our buildings are old, not necessarily the city, but the stores, access to stores and that, and they don't have the wheelchair ramp. They don't have enough accessibility for people, and it's a shame. Like even the theater, the ADSS, there is a wheelchair accessibility, but there's not enough. And I know from my own experience, I did a concert there just about a month ago, and I had more wheelchairs than I thought were going to be there, and there was not enough room. So we had to budge a lot. So anyways, so do we have enough? Is there more people living with some kind of disability that and coming out more, where before a lot of people stayed home, and they're now living in our world, which is great. And so I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the recommendation to that. How much do we need in each of our facilities? And Nicole, you might be able to answer that because you work with people that live with different disabilities. Did you want to respond to that, Nicole, or?
Yeah, sorry, Cindy, what was your question again? What did you ask me?
Like, how do you judge how much space do we need in our facilities for people living with disabilities, right? And you
Yeah.
work with all types. So how do we judge that?
One of the things that's really challenging is trying to determine seating, and some of it is around movable chairs, and it's actually not it's creating spaces that are more modular, that have where you have opportunity for people to sit, where you can add seating or make room, because it's really hard to assess how much space you're going to need. So that's what we're looking to do when we're going forward. And it was Sunny Hill Hospital that just did a bunch of work on that. So they're a really good role model for accessibility in creating spaces that can be altered so that there is enough room.
That makes sense. Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to the principle in universal design and universal accessibility. One of them is about flexibility or adaptability, and being about having space that can be changed to meet the needs of multiple different groups and so as exactly as you were saying, Nicole, seating, that you can add seating or remove seating, so that people can come in a larger group with people who use wheelchairs, or you can, if you don't have people coming out to that game or that concert, can have seating that is providing of chairs. And so lots of opportunities for that kind of flexibility and adaptability. The next section is around procurement. So this means when the city or the regional district are buying or renting goods or services, to be making sure that they're thinking about accessibility in that. So for ACRD, there are two. The first is about updating policies to kind of just incorporate accessibility considerations into those procurement processes. There is right now in many of them a social procurement angle to it. And so staff have identified some ways of expanding that to make sure accessibility is a core consideration. And similarly, some guidance internally around how to be thinking about accessibility when going about doing those pieces of procurement. And then the cities are the same too. The language may be slightly different, but it's the same two key ideas. So I will again pause and see if there's any questions or comments.
Questions, comments? No? Oh, yep, go ahead.
I think one internal discussion that we've had recently related to procurement is sometimes the regional district hires consultants, like we've hired Left Turn, Right Turn for this project. And we need to think about accessibility in our request for proposals so that the consultants know that they need to be thinking about accessibility, especially if we're doing public engagement. So it comes back to just staff being trained and incorporating accessibility into everything that we do so that we're starting each project off on the right foot.
Thank you. Anybody else? No. Go ahead.
Thank you. There may be, it's largely also about being deliberate. There may be times when you're deliberately choosing that it's not relevant. So I think of buying fuel as a good example, but that you're making sure that you're like, oh no, of course it's not relevant to this, rather than that happening accidentally. So the last section is around increasing awareness and reducing attitudinal barriers. And so this is the one that is not specifically listed in the Accessible BC Act, but came directly from the committee's desire for it. And it's the same opportunity both for the city and for ACRD, which is about public education and awareness. And so it's really long, but it's exactly this piece around a public education campaign, thinking about social media, to try and use this as an opportunity to raise awareness around accessibility, reduce attitudinal barriers, and as a forum for engagement around accessibility. This is really important, as we were talking before, about building awareness of the things, the availability of accessibility services, but also to hopefully build some knowledge around its importance for the community. Are there other questions or comments about this?
Anybody questions, comments? No?
Vida has raised her hand.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. Okay, go right ahead, Vida.
Yeah, I would like to go back to Amber's comment about the awareness and attitudinal stuff. I really believe that there is room for just awareness signage. I know certainly I learned a lot when I was riding public transit. I was always reading signs because I, at the time, didn't have a cell phone. I realize a lot of people are more cell phone focused, but we now have more ability to have signage, I do believe, in our public transit. And I think this is an opportunity, and perhaps we should have somebody who we can go to suggest messages that are coming to our attention, and perhaps have that messaging placed in public transit, both the bus stops and the transit itself. And I'm just wondering if this would go in with sort of in ACRD, Heather Thompson's role, perhaps. I don't, that's just a comment, and I know that perhaps Heather can fill me in on those possibilities. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, Veda. I don't know what the ability to utilize signage on the West Coast, because I haven't seen the interior of those buses, but I think that's a great idea, certainly for the Alberni Valley. Sarah, do you know if the city's ever considered advertising on the city buses?
Not to my knowledge, no. I would have to look at our current agreement with them and see if there's any language that pertains to that.
I like the idea because when I rode the bus in Vancouver, I read every sign up there dozens of times. Totally agree with you. And yeah, I believe a lot of people would read that. It's not just, and I believe it should be not necessarily inside, they also have outside the bus, right? So if you're parked behind, because not everybody rides the bus system in Port Alberni, so you would read it if you were following behind more so or on the side of the bus. It's great. It's one way they make some money and one way we spend some money, but if it helps one person, then it definitely would work. I always look at it like that, one person that it just takes. So Kara, anything else? You want to go on? Sorry
Yeah,
about
we're at
that.
the
And we have Amber, do you want to make a comment?
Just out of curiosity, is there going to be a timeline of doing an awareness campaign? Like when it would be created, when it would be launched, that kind of thing?
Not yet. I think what we would like to do is get these plans adopted by the board and city council first, and then we'll, as each organization, work on a work plan to put timelines to each of these things.
Is that what you're looking for? I know we would like it done yesterday, but I'm a yesterday person. Okay. Next, anybody else want to make a comment before we continue on? Okay. Go ahead.
I just had one more thought about the transit. Our operations manager, Eddie Kunderman, he was heavily involved with the expansion of the transit on the West Coast, but he also used to work for BC Transit. So I can have a chat with him and get some ideas about advertising on transit.
Super. And anybody else? No? Okay, go ahead, Carol.
Great. Well, that brought us actually to the end of all of these opportunities. So I think the question that I would ask just as a general question is if there's any overarching things that you want to provide overarching feedback. I think it'll certainly be important for city and the regional district as they're bringing this forward to council and the board of directors, or if there's anything that's missing. I think those are my two questions. You have suggestions of anything you want to see added or other broad comments?
And anybody want to make a comment to that? No, I think what we need, oh, sorry, go ahead, Veda.
Sorry, yeah, no, I think it's very thorough and I think represents the feedback that was given, but it is still pretty broad and we have to look at the actionable pieces within our organization. So I guess now it's, yeah, I don't know if the consultants continue to the actionable pieces or not. Thanks.
Sarah, do you want to make comment to that?
I'd say it's very common that you need the overarching strategy approved by leadership and then by from there moving forward to the implementation plans. The adoption of this by council and the board of directors is the end of our current engagement. Of course, we are happy to keep helping the city and regional district if they so choose, but that would be the end of our current engagement.
So I'm hearing that what's going to happen next steps. It will go to the regional, yours will go to the regional district and the city will go back to the city and council and regional district directors will take a look at it and implement and where they're going to go with it. I think it's really important for this committee to know what the city does, plans are, as well as the CRD's plans. I mean, again, I always say talk is cheap, right? Actions speak better. So how and the steps that we're going to take, this committee needs to know what's going to come out of it, you know, what the outcome. I mean, we've seen it all, but I'd like to know if I'm sitting on a committee. Okay, Heather.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. And really that's the purpose of this committee is to ensure that this isn't an initiative. It's not a project. It doesn't have a start and an end date. It will continue on forever. So I think maybe some feedback from the committee on how you would like to be updated. Do we want to make this a standing item on our agenda each quarter, an update on progress, where we're at, what things we're working on? I think that might be a good way to, hold the city and the regional district accountable for this work that we need to do. But I'd like some feedback.
So I'm going to go to each one and everybody will get an opportunity to tell us. So we'll start with you, Veda.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I really like the way the strategic plan is set up. So it's got clear strategies, goals, measurable outcomes. Like if we could do it in that format for each organization, so it's really clear what strategies and how they connect to each of the individual, like whether it's a planning department item, whether it's communications, like I think that would be great.
Great. And Rainey?
Yeah, I agree with Veda. I think that that would be awesome. And I think that having the quarterly update would work for me anyway. It would be good, just so that I know what's going on.
Thank you. And Nicole?
I agree that we need to have measurable outcomes and something that we can at least work from, and then we can always revisit it. To Heather's point, it's not we'll probably end up pivoting and changing certain things, but without a plan, we can plan to fail, I think. So yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Nicole. Amber?
Yeah, I like the idea of it being a standing item.
Super. And Sarah?
Thank you. Yeah, so I can say just from the city's perspective that Left Turn, Right Turn will be coming to present to our council in June, and they'll be presenting at a committee of the whole meeting. So it's a bit of a different format in that all of council is there, but it's a bit of a informal session that allows for more conversation. And so what happens at committee of the whole meetings is that they provide recommendations to council. So if they so choose, they'll recommend that these recommendations be approved. And so that would come forward to our regular meeting at the end of June. And at that time, if council so chooses to approve that and endorse the plan, then staff would look at moving forward with what that looks like and an action plan for the next committee meeting.
Oops. And Heather?
This all sounds great to me.
So it's going to go back to the ACRD and they'll take a look at it and come back with their
The board,
comments.
yeah, the board will review this on June 26th, and if they're happy with it, then they will adopt it at that time.
So there you go. So there will be some measurables and I definitely think that's really important for moving forward. And I do like the idea of the quarterly report or something like that to come out and we'll figure it out from there. And I think anybody else have comments or anything like that? Kara, do you want to say anything finally? A final word?
I just would ask you, to the chair, if you want any motion or anything recommending these recommendations or opportunities to council and the board. Of course, it's for you, but it's just the question I would pose.
No, I think that's important. I believe, somebody want to make a motion to move forward to send to city as well as to the ACRD? Veda, are you saying yes? That's your motion? Okay.
Yes, I'd like to move that this committee move forward to provide these recommendations to the City of Port Alberni Council and the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Council, and that just pause that motion, but Should we put it in there that we would look forward to a strategic plan to ensure follow-up? I don't know if that should be part of it or not.
I don't know that we need that as part of the actual recommendation. I think staff have committed to adding this as a standing item for the committee. So I think at this point, I think I would like to leave it at that. If that doesn't meet the committee's interests at the next meeting, my preference would be to change it at that time.
Perfect. So yeah, I'll just make that motion that we that our recommendations as per the development by left turn, right turn be presented to our respective decision-making bodies. Thanks.
Do you want to read that motion? As she's typing it out, 1 second.
That the Accessibility Committee accept the recommendations as presented and recommend approval to the City of Port Alberni Council and ACRD Board of Directors.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Somebody want to second this? Okay, and it's seconded by Amber. Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Kara, and thank you, Christopher. And any late business? Nope. There's nobody online, I believe, so question period.
Yep, just give me a second to check the
Okay.
email responses. There's none received and there's nobody in the audience.
Okay, so the next meeting, we will send out the notice, or do you have a date? Okay,
Yeah, we just wanted to chat about the next two meetings to get us to the end of the year. Our meeting schedule was a bit different because we were trying to work with the consultant to come up with the accessibility plans. So going forward, as per the terms of reference, we'll meet on a quarterly basis. So I do have two dates that I would like to propose to the committee for your consideration. So September 24th, that's a Tuesday at 10 a.m. and December 10th at 10 a.m. as well. So if you could have a quick look at your calendars and let me know if those are acceptable to you.
I'll give everybody a second here because we're going to take a few minutes here.
September 24th and December 10th.
I'm not going to be in the country on December 10th.
We're checking. So we have a December person that you're going to be out of country. Beta.
Yeah, 17th would work for me, but not the 10th.
No. So we're looking at September. We're gonna start with September. So everybody, I can't do September 24th because I have an audit committee at 9:30 in the morning. So we're gonna look at that.
Would the afternoon work on
Yeah.
that day?
How about the afternoon on that day, everybody, of September?
I can only do mornings on Tuesdays.
Okay.
Wednesday's open? Well, Wednesday's our
Our board
regional
meeting.
district.
I think we should probably stick to a Tuesday morning. October 8th was another choice. Tuesday morning.
Yeah, 1st and 8th work for me of October.
October 8th works for me. Yes?
Okay.
How? Anybody else? October? Oh, we're just looking here. Sorry. We're looking, still looking.
But this will be sent out to everybody anyway, right?
That's
Correct. Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
just, well, we try to make it a little easier right now.
Okay.
Sarah has more on her calendar than I do for the city, so. Yep, okay, October 8th. Nobody has any problem with October 8th? Nope,
Okay.
okay, so there we go.
Okay.
And the second one,
How about, was there a reason why we didn't choose the first Tuesday in December, Sarah?
in December, oh. So we're sort of looking at the first Tuesday in December, December 3rd. Are you in the
You know
country?
what? You can cancel all of those difficulties for me, because if these are Zoomable events, then I can, on any of those days, I can definitely make sure that I have access to internet.
Okay, so does December 10th work for everyone? Yes, Rainey, Nicole, Amber, yep. Cindy?
Okay, yep,
Okay, well then let's stick with that one as well.
okay, super. Okay, so thank you, everyone, and thank you to our consultants. I'm sure you'll be hearing from Heather in the future, or from all of us, so thank you. And Heather, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Kara and her team for leading us through this. It was really appreciative to have you lead our first 3 committee meetings and get us on the right track. So thank you to your team.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a
Welcome.
pleasure.
You want to say anything?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just echo Heather's comments. I know I came in partway through this process, but it's been very informative, and really appreciate everyone's participation, and including our consultants. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll have a motion to adjourn. Motion by Nicole, second. I don't think I need a second on a
No.
adjourn. Okay, enjoy your day, guys. It's a beautiful day out, and thank you very much for giving your time here. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.